Hello students, last class we were discussing about the living world chapter, the first chapter in first PUC biology. So let us have a small glance of whatever we have studied in the last class. And in the first slide, we have gone through the synopsis, that means the subheadings, whatever we are going to study in the chapter, what is living, the exact meaning of a living organism, as well as the definition for the life. Second one, diversity in the living world. Taxonomy category, taxonomical aids. Total 4 subcategories are there. So we have already finished the first one, that is what is living, definition for life, as well as the definition for a living organism. So and in the second subheading, the important one is the properties of living organisms. Hope you have you can remember that total 5 properties of living organisms we have studied. In those 5, only 3 can be considered as a defining properties. Defining means the properties which are only restricted to the living organisms. That means they don't have any exemption. Okay, so which are those 5? Obviously the first one is the growth, second one reproduction, next metabolism, cellular organization, and the last one is the consciousness. Okay, so total 5 characters we have already studied. So let us move into the next class, that is the next important one, the next subheading, that is the diversity in the living world. The meaning of the diversity. See, the diversity word is a common thing, it's a common word. Diversity in general, it means the variety in the living world. Okay, variety, or else in general we can also use the word types. How many types of living organisms we are having in the world, including terrestrial as well as aquatic. It's remember, it's a type, it is not concerning about the number of species, it is about the type or the variety. The number and types of organisms present on earth refers to biodiversity. If we apply the biology before the word diversity, it becomes biodiversity. That means the numerous number of organisms as well as the different types of organisms that we are going to observe in the whole world. This all together we can call it as a biodiversity. Okay, so next one, the total number of species described till now is 1.7 to 1.8 million, including terrestrial as well as aquatic as well as air. Okay, 1.7 to 1.8 million, that equals to 17 to 18 lakhs. It is not about number, it is about the types of organisms, starting from unicellular bacteria, ends with multicellular mammalia, human being. Okay, but approximately the estimated number of species are present in the world is up to 9 million. That means 90 lakhs of species are there in the earth as well as in the air, but they has to be yet to be discovered. But so far till now 1.7 to 1.8 million species have been described. That means they have been already discovered and they have been described. We know their characteristics. The next important aspect is we should study about the term, that is the taxonomy. It's a biological word. In general we can call it as a systematics. What it is? It is the study of identification, classification and nomenclature of organisms. So taxonomy or a systematic, it is a sub branch of the biology, okay, which deals with the study of identification of any new organism, whether it's a unicellular or multicellular. Identification, after identifying it, it has to be classified. That means where it has to be belong, whether it's a prokaryote, eukaryote, plant, animal or something. And nomenclature. So nomenclature means giving a scientific name to it. Okay, nomenclature is a biological word. In general we can call it as a name, giving a name to it. So here systematics, systema is a Latin word. What it means? Systema means a systematic arrangement which considers evolutionary relationship between organisms. So to study taxonomy of any particular organism, if we found any new organism, okay, we will identify it, we will classify it and we will give a scientific name for it. But all these processes are depending on a evolutionary relationships between the organism. So I hope you know the meaning of evolution. What it is? gradual change in the characteristics of an organism over several generations. Okay, in higher classes you will study more about it. So what it is going to say, every new organism discovered is somewhat related to the previously discovered organism. This is what the main theme of the evolution process. And the important thing is Systema Naturae. It's a Latin book which is written by Carolus Linnaeus. He is a Sweden scientist in the 70th century. He has written a book called as Systema Naturae, where he has described about the taxonomy. That's why Carolus Linnaeus is considered as a father of taxonomy in the biology. He first started the modern classification of the organism. So this is very important, the name of the scientist and the book written by him, that is Systema Naturae, which is in Latin language. So next one is the basic processes in taxonomy. So what we are going to do in the taxonomical study, generally we call it the taxonomical study. The first step, what we are going to do in the taxonomical study, that is the characterization. Whenever we found any new organism, it may be bacteria, plant, animal, fungi, or whatever it is, characterization is the first step. So what we are going to do there? It is the understanding of characters of organisms. We have to understand, first we have to study how it is, such as external and internal structure. First, external study of external structure is called as morphology. Study of internal structure is called as anatomy. So the morphology and anatomy should be studied first. Okay. Next we have to study the structure of a cell. We have to pick a randomized cell and we have to study about it. What is its structure? How many chromosomes are there and all. And development process. How it is going to develop from its zygote into adulthood. Okay. That is, we call it as a embryology. As well as we have to get the ecological information. Ecological information means the relationships between the organisms with its environment, in which specific habitat it is going to live, whether it is aquatic, whether it is aerial, or whether it's a terrestrial. That thing we have to study. So this all comes under a category called as categorization, which is the first step in the taxonomy. So after studying all this, second step we have to identify. So that after studying all these characters, we will come to a conclusion that whether it's a plant or an animal or a bacteria, whether prokaryote or eukaryote. So that is the second step, it is identification. After identifying, what we have to do? We have to classify that particular organism. So this is very important in study of biology. That's why they have kept this concept in the first chapter of the first PUC. Classification. Why we are going to classify the things? For example, whenever we move into any supermarket, they used to be classified different things in the different places, isn't it? Vegetables are kept in one place, fruits are kept in other place, okay? The groceries are kept in other places, like that. So that if we classify these organisms systematically, so that we can easily study them, we can easily know about their character, as well as we can easily take if any beneficial effects are there from. So classification, it is the grouping of organisms into convenient categories. So category is a English term. In biology, we can call it as a taxa, T-A-X-A. Taxa is a biological term. That means simply a category based on the characters, whatever we have studied in the first step. Okay. So that is called as the classification. At the end of the taxonomical study, that means at the end of characterization, identification and classification, after the completion of all these three steps, the fourth one is the nomenclature. Nomenclature is a biological word. So commonly it is called a naming. So it is the standardization of names of the organism such that organism is known by the same name all over the world, irrespective of its identification. Wherever it is found, it should be given a same name, and every human being that is who is going to study that organism should call that organism with only one name. We call that name as a scientific name, or we can also call it as a biological name and all. So to give a name for that particular organism, there are several rules are there. We are going to study that in further slide. But the naming should be done at the end of the taxonomical study. Okay. So here there is a definition for it. the system of naming of organisms with two components is called as binomial nomenclature. In the name only we can understand binomial, bi, bi means two, nomial means name, binomial nomenclature. Giving a name to an organism which is having two components, we call it as a binomial nomenclature, which is also a part of taxonomical study. Each scientific name is having two components. See, scientific name, biological name, binomial name, all are similar. Okay, it is having two components mainly. The first component we call it as the generic name or simply genus name. Second one is species name, or else it is also called as specific epithet. So each individual scientific name or biological name is having two components, that is the generic name as well as the specific epithet or simply species name. Binomial nomenclature is proposed by Carolus Linnaeus. That's why I already told you Carolus Linnaeus is called as the father of taxonomy. He first started giving the scientific name to the organisms. That's why he called as a father of taxonomy. Botanical names. So here botanical refers to the study of the plant. Botany means study of the plant. Botanical names. If we identify any new plants, to give the name for that plant, the rules are given by an international organization. In short, we call it as ICBN. That means International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. So it's an international organization. Many scientists will be there and they will finalize the botanical name for the particular plant species. Like that, to give a scientific name for any newly discovered animal species, there is a separate organization called as International Code for Zoological Nomenclature. In short, it is ICZN. So this organization is governing the rules that are going to give the scientific name for newly discovered animals. So like that, ICBN, ICZN, there are other organizations are also there, like International Code for Bacteriological Nomenclature, International Code for Virological Nomenclature, like that. So several organizations are there and they are going to govern the naming process. So the important aspect of today's class is the universal rules for binomial nomenclature. So each and every person who is going to study the living organism has to follow these 5 rules. Total 5 rules are there to give the name of scientific name to any organism. The first rule, what it is going to say? It says that biological names are Latin or Latinized. That means all the biological names, for example, Homo sapiens, you might be knowing Homo sapiens, it is the scientific name of modern man. Okay, all the names of all the scientific names are Latin or Latinized. That means they should be in the Latin language and written in italics. So you might be knowing the italics font, which are slightly slanting. They are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. So what it means, if any new species is identified any corner of the world, wherever it is, if it is identified, they may be given their common names for that. They can call it as anything, but at the end of the process, the biological name should be in Latin, or if they have given any name which is other than the Latin, it should be Latinized. Why? Because the Carolus Linnaeus, he has described all his laws in the Latin language only. Okay, so Latin language is mainly from the Rome, that is from the Italy. Second rules in giving the binomial nomenclature is the first word in a biological name represents the genus name, as we already studied, that is the generic name, and the second word is the species name, that is specific epithet. One example we can study here, Homo sapiens. So Homo here it refers to genus name, sapiens refers to the species name. So whenever we write any biological name, we have to write both the components. We cannot write only Homo or we cannot write only sapiens. We have to write both. So here Homo represents the genus as well as sapiens represent the species name. So this is the second important role in case of binomial nomenclature. Next one, both the words in a biological name, that is both genus name as well as species name, when handwritten, wherever we write on the blackboard or on the paper or in the examination, wherever, when it is handwritten, they should be separately underlined. For example, here one example we are having Mangifera indica. So I hope you know Mangifera indica, it is a biological name of a mango tree. So Mangifera is genus name, indica is species name. When it is handwritten, Mangifera and indica should be separately underlined, not completely separately. Mangifera separately as well as indica separately. Or printed, if we are going to print, for example, if you can observe in the textbook, when it is printed, it should be in italics to indicate their Latin origin. Okay, whenever we print the scientific name or the biological name, it should be in a italics font. Next one, but whenever we write the scientific name, it need not to be in italics. It can be in a normal font, but it has to be underlined separately. The genus name starts with the capital letter and the species name starts with small letter. Mangifera, M, the genus name, only the first letter of the genus, it has started with the capital letter. The remaining letters in the genus name are small letters. And the species name starts with a small letter. That means all the letters present in the spaces should be in a small letters, so that only the first letter of the genus should be capital letter, remaining all the letters should be in a small letter, and there should be a space present between genus name and species name. The last one, the name of the author is written in abbreviated form. Name of the author, here it refers to the man who first described that organism, or the man who first discovered that organism. He considered as a author. Okay, the name of the author is written in abbreviated form and it appears at the end of the biological name. For example, Mangifera indica, and at the end we have written LINN dot. So LINN, here it refers to Linnaeus, Carolus Linnaeus. He first described the Mangifera indica. That's why we have written his name at the end of the biological name, as well. That is also in an abbreviated form, LINN. We need not to write complete his name, but it should be in abbreviated form, 3 to 4 letters. As well as there should be a full point at the end of the name of author, as well as when we handwritten, we should not underline that name of the author. That is important. We have to underline only genus and species, and we can leave the name of the author. And even if we don't know the name of the author of that organism, we can leave that, but we have to completely write the name of genus as well as the species. So here it indicates that this species was first described by the Linnaeus, that is Carolus Linnaeus. Like that, different species have been discovered by different types of different scientists, so that in every textbook they used to be given the abbreviated form of the man who has first described that, so that by considering all these 5 laws, we can easily write the biological words, so that you can refer your high school books, so that you can get different biological names from them, and you check there whether biological names are in a correct format or not. Okay, so let us meet in next class. Thank you.